I've spent the last few weeks searching for the easiest possible way to print jaw-dropping AI videos. If it required becoming an expert prompter, I threw it in the trash. If it required hours of setup, trash. If it required expensive subscriptions, trash. If it required me to write the whole prompt from scratch, also trash. But one method didn't end up in the compactor on the detention level. Three seemingly unrelated free tools, and one significantly discounted pay-as-you-go tool later, and my search was over. I'm going to show you the simple but specific use of these three free tools and how you can create a simple process for delivering consistent AI video results. Let's go. Okay, I'm really excited about what we're going to cover today because we're going to be using Claude Desktop, and you can use the free version to be your AI that will help basically be your guide to creating these perfect prompts for Sora, at least as good as they can get at this point. And so we're going to build an MCP server, which there's a lot of hype around that right now. And these things are incredible. So this video is just one of my favorite videos that I've made so far. So we're going to go ahead and get started by adding an MCP server trigger right here. Now, before we get into that, we're going to add a sticky note right here. And we are going to create a bearer token. And we're just going to do a random string of numbers and letters and special characters. And we're going to come back to this in just a minute once we get through this MCP server trigger, because we're going to use it. So we're going to copy this bearer token to our clipboard, and then we're going to open this MCP server trigger. And once we're here in this MCP server trigger, we're going to select this drop down for authentication, and we're going to make it bearer auth. And that's going to open up a credential for bearer auth right here. And we're going to create a new one just to see this from bottom to top. So when we come here, we are now going to take that bearer token that we had from our sticky note. We're going to paste it right here, and then we're going to save that. And this is important because down the road, we're going to need to get that bearer token and use it in another place, actually in Claude Desktop soon enough. So that's why we put it in the sticky note so that we can copy and paste it again. So now that we have that set up, we have our path, our production. That's pretty much all that we need to do for this MCP server trigger, at least this particular part of the node. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add a new MCP server tool. Right here you can see in this little drop down that comes from this MCP trigger. So the first thing that we're going to add is a Google Docs tool. So we'll come here and then we're going to search for Google Docs. Google Docs tool, there it is. And we're going to do some setup here. And this is important because we need to tell Claude Desktop basically its role and what we're trying to do, which is we're going to tell Claude Desktop that it is a specialist at creating Sora 2 prompts, and we're going to tell it exactly what it needs to know so that we are creating prompts that work, that are consistent. So the first thing that we're going to cover is make sure that you're connected to the correct credentials. Now mine are already set up. If you need to set up Google credentials, you can watch a video on my channel that will show you how to do that. But these are pretty much already set up. So now what we want to do here on the next one on tool description is we want to set this manually. What we're going to put in here is a description so that Claude Desktop knows what this tool does, because basically Claude Desktop is blind to the tools that we are giving it, besides the description that we give it. So when we give it a description, it's going to understand, depending on the strength of the description, what that tool does. So we're going to say fetch the latest Sora 2 documentation so that it can interpret, so that it knows what this tool does. So the next piece is the resource. We're going to do document, and then we're going to do get document. What we want to do is get the URL. So I have the URL here. Here is the document that we're going to feed into Claude Desktop that's going to teach it essentially what we want it to do. And you can get this document as well as the workflows by following the link in the description. It will take you to create a free account at automationhackers.net. and then you'll be able to access all of both the workflow and this document here so that you can put this workflow to work for yourself, kind of out of the box. So we're going to grab this URL right here. We're going to go back to our workflow and we're going to paste that in here. So that should be set. Now we want to turn simplify off. This will make it so it'll take in the whole entire document. Okay, and one other thing that we want to do here is make sure that we name this tool correctly so that it's in natural language and that so that Claude Desktop can read it correctly. So we're going to call it Get Sora Video Prompting Instructions for LLM so that it's even more clear to Claude what this tool does. So we'll save that. Now you can see that name is here, and that's what Claude will be able to read. So now we're going to add another tool, which this one is going to be called n8n Workflow Tool. And now we're going to put a pretty robust description here so that Claude Desktop knows what this is. And the description that we're going to put in here is this. This tool is called after the get Sora prompting instructions, so that it follows the correct order of operations. And then this process or this function accepts a prompt variable that is passed to Sora 2 for creating a video. Always confirm with the user before exiting this tool as it costs money. So we're giving Claude Desktop some instructions to say you need to confirm and just giving it the order of operations. So now we're going to go from database here, and then we're going to select from list. And the list that we're going, or the workflow that we're going to select in this case is MCP Sora-2. Then it shows that this workflow input takes a prompt, and we're just going to say let the model define this parameter. So we do let the model define this because since we gave it context, it knows what this is, and we're not going to try and hard code it. The model will be able to put this in. Claude Desktop will know what to do with this workflow input. So I just want to show you what this means. This call workflow. It's going to actually call this workflow, and it's going to go through, and then it's going to deliver that prompt to a service called Key, which is kind of like a marketplace for video image generation, which allows us to consolidate all of our API keys down to just one. And the other really nice thing about Key is it's significantly cheaper than Sora and will allow us to create more videos and give us a little bit of leeway in our practice so that we don't just run up a big bill in trying to get these right. So Key it's about 10 times cheaper than Sora itself. So it's a really, really good platform to use. If you want to see the full in-depth guide on this, you can watch the video on my channel. It will go through all the details for this workflow. But just know that this tool is going to call that workflow. Okay, and another thing that we need to do is we're just going to name this. So we're now naming that tool so it's so that we're just leaving no doubt for Claude Desktop to understand what each of these tools does. So that's enough. We're done with setting up the tools. And the next step that we need to do is we're going to open up this MCP server. But before we do that, we're going to make sure that this is active so that it's published and ready to start receiving inquiries from Claude Desktop. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to reopen the MCP server trigger, and we're going to click on this little icon up here, the docs icon, and it's going to take us to the docs for the MCP server. So click on this, and we're going to scroll down, and it's going to give us there's a little JSON code right here that we're going to copy to our clipboard, and this is what's going to help us connect our n8n MCP server to Claude Desktop. So now that we have that copied, we're going to open up Claude Desktop. So let's just type in Claude here. Okay, now that we're here in Claude Desktop, we can come up to Claude, we can do settings, and that's going to open up this screen. We're going to go down to developer, and then we're going to go to edit config. And this is going to open our file system. So here we are in a file system. It's going to open up a Claude Desktop config JSON. So we're going to click on this, double click on this, and open it. And it's going to open something that looks like this. And we're going to just paste in that JSON that we got from n8n, and then we're going to save it. Now this is where we need to go back and we need to get our auth token. So we're going to go back to our workflow, and we are going to now copy this bearer token. So we'll copy that, and we'll come back here, and we're going to add our bearer token right here in this placeholder in our environment variables. And then we'll save it. And one other thing that we need to get is we need to get this MCP URL and that is back here in our n8n workflow. It's in our MCP server trigger. Now there's a test URL, and then there's a production URL. And the production URL is the one that we're going to go with today because that is one that is listening. This is basically an endpoint or a place on the internet where this workflow is listening for any kind of inquiries to come from Claude or ChatGPT or any other service like that. So we're going to use the production URL. So we'll click it and it automatically copies it. We're going to go back to this document and we're going to replace the placeholder with our actual URL. And then we're going to save it. We're going to exit out of this document, and then we're going to quit Claude Code because we need to refresh it to allow it to register that MCP server that we have. So we'll exit out and we'll reopen Claude. So you have Claude reopened, and the way that you'll know that this was successfully connected is we'll come down here and you'll see n8n right here is toggled on. So we do have access to it. Now let's just confirm that it has access to the Sora documentation. Okay, so now it's confirming that it does have access to that Sora 2 documentation. And now we're going to go through and start creating a video together. And the video that we're going to create today, we're going to create just a random funny video today. So it's going to be create a video that is a piece of a cartoon spinach that is talking smack to a piece of tomato. Tomato buddy, you're good, real good, but let's not pretend you're the muscle around here. Without me, salads are just diced disappointment. I make the bowl. So we're going to do this and we're going to walk through this process together. So now we're going to allow it to fetch the documentation. So now it understands what it needs to do and all of the things that Sora needs to see, and it's going to walk us through the process, basically holding our hand. So we're going to go through and answer all these. Any other questions that will make the prompt perfect? So you can see that as we tell it to ask us more questions, it's going to get more details that will really help Sora create the video that we have envisioned in our mind, because when you leave out these details, it's hard for Sora. It has to fill in the gaps. But now Claude understands everything that Sora needs, and so it's just going to help us fill out the things that it needs to help the vision come to life and help Sora understand what we want. Okay, so now it created this prompt for us, this big long prompt. And then with all the details that we put into it and with all the things that Sora needs to create a video that matches our vision. And then you'll see down here at the bottom, this prompt is ready to send to Sora 2. Since creating the video costs money, I need your confirmation before proceeding. Would you like me to send this prompt to Sora 2 to create your video? So remember, we left in the instructions that it was supposed to do that, and here it is doing that. So now we can just tell it yes. Go ahead and create the video. And now it's going to ask us permission to use the tool. And we're going to allow it. And now we'll go back over to n8n and see that it is executing. So we'll go to this one. We'll look at executions. And you can see that it's running. So this sub workflow has been called and is running now. So if we go over to key, so now that we're over here in key, we can see that this is actually running a photorealistic kitchen counter scene with cartoon characters, a piece of fresh spinach, and we see that our whole prompt is here. So it successfully has been sent to key, and now we just need to wait for it to finish, and then we can see the video. Okay, so now it's successfully finished, so we can look at the result. Tomato buddy, you're good, real good. Let's not pretend you're the muscle around here. Without me, salads are just diced disappointment. I make the bowl. Here we go. So there you go. And maybe there's some tweaks that we want to make, but this is far better than trying to come up with a prompt on your own when it's so complicated what Sora wants to see. We can just let AI help us to guide us to pull the vision out of our mind and then deliver these kinds of results that are far more consistent than trying to do it on your own. And the best part is that you're tying the AI to Claude Desktop, which has a free version, so you don't even need to pay for that AI. You obviously need to pay for Sora. There's no way around that, but we're getting it at a heavily discounted rate. So this only costs us 15 cents, whereas it would probably cost us closer to $1 if we were to go straight through Sora. So this is just incredible. If you want to have the workflows as well as that prompting document, again, you can look at the link in the description. You just set up a free account. It doesn't cost you anything. Then you can download all of the assets that we use today to complete this.